Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. First and foremost, I gotta apologize. Last night I tried to post up a podcast, set it up to be delivered this morning, and apparently it failed. So I'm trying to be more consistent, I promise, guys. Sometimes even the tech guy or the guy who's really technical has tech issues. What I wanted to talk about was yesterday. Let's just cover what happened yesterday. I wanted to first and foremost say my sincere and heartfelt condolences in New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union's condolences to Corey Compentor. If you don't know who this man is, he's the man that died shielding his family from the gunshots that happened during the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Now, what I was covering last night, or what should have been dropped this morning, was Trump's VP pick. Okay, as far as I am concerned, as far as New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union, because, you know, I am the one that runs it, is concerned, he couldn't have done better. J.D. Vance is so pro-2A that it's kind of awesome for once. He does not back red flag laws. He backs soldiers, because he was a Marine himself, to continue to keep their 2A rights despite what's happened in Congress and in the Senate. He doesn't support magazine bans, assault weapons bans. He doesn't support the ATF's unjust use of their powers, so he's not a big fan of Chevron deference. As far as all the things we are concerned about with New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union when it comes to politics, the man earns an A. And he can correct, and he was a never Trumper, so he has since redeemed himself in Trump's eyes to be elected, or to be nominated, or selected, that is, for vice president. Corey Compentor, if you would like, has a GoFundMe. I don't have the link, but I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to find. He's doing, his family is left without him. There's some also for the other victims. There are 2 other victims that are in stable condition. They were in critical condition because of this idiot shooter. I'm not going to mention his name again. I probably shouldn't have named him the first time. I broke my own rules there, but this seemed to be such a historical event. What has happened since Saturday? Not a lot. You would think in this day and age we would know everything there is about the shooter. And so far we're just getting that he's an estranged loner. That was picked on a lot. Which you could kind of tell just because of the type of action he took. He was incompetent enough that they didn't even want him on his own rifle team in school. So, because some of the reports have come out that said that he missed a target 20 feet by 20 feet. That's incompetent, okay? So, not only was it God's armor, his protective armor that was on Trump, it was the fact that this guy was an idiot. There are questions that still surround this type of incident. Well, this incident in general. How'd this guy clear Secret Service and the security parameters that are a perimeter around this? And there's a lot of questions, specifically Dan Bongino, a guy that used to do this for the presidents, and I think it's multiple presidents, has raised a lot of questions that no one's been able to answer. And I don't know that we'll ever get an answer, because how do you, if Trump wins, I'm going to say when he wins, because I honestly think he's going to now, because no one in history has ever survived an assassination attempt and didn't win. So there's historical precedence here. So what I was getting to is, how do you police the guys that just saved your life, or quote unquote saved your life? If you start a firing spree, you start these guys now who are in your innermost circle, you start pissing them off. And if you start trying to reform everything about them, you have the same effect. So I don't know how Trump specifically and how his team is going to address this, but it needs to be addressed, because if and when he wins, I'm going to say when, again, it needs to be addressed because this threat threshold is only going to get greater, especially with bad actors, foreign bad actors. There's a plot that was discovered that Iranians want him dead with Trump's record on Ukraine. On Ukraine not supporting Ukraine. Ukraine's already put out hit lists on people in the United States. Excuse me, needed to drink water. I could see that being there, being Russians that were fighting in Ukraine, or the Ukrainians are fighting. I could see them because we're putting aid in Ukraine. And I don't know that Trump can back out of Ukraine at this time. And I say that not because he's not capable. It's that we have gotten so involved that it may not be easy to get out of what we've done. 3 years. The war has been going on for 2 years, and nothing has backtracked. If anything, you've seen the American government double down, and that's not what most of us in the United States want. Now, we kind of want to back away from the world because we've had 20 years of war, country building that didn't do anything but waste American lives and treasure. So I could see we're in this weird spot where I could see the world order wanting us to step up, and a lot of Americans wanting us to step up to keep up the ceiling of the global order. But the population itself of the United States isn't interested. We have like I said, we've sacrificed a lot of American blood and a lot of American treasure to keep everyone else up, and we have problems at home that need to be fixed. Pie in the sky for me, I'd like to see Trump get in, secure our border so that we don't have that bleeding hemorrhage that's causing so many issues here. Take some industrial steps to start rehoming American manufacturing and jobs back to the United States, specifically the ones that are around China. I'd like to see us, at the very least, reach across the border to Mexico and maybe rehoming some of those lower-skilled jobs, if not directly in the United States, in something that would benefit us, because then there's only a transport issue just crossing one border instead of crossing oceans to get to us. I think that Trump needs to address the issues that are in Mexico that are going to bleed over here. The cartels have gotten powerful enough to where the Mexican government's kind of useless, and he needs to help prop them up. If we're going to prop up anybody, it'd be our neighbor, so that it doesn't bleed over here, because all it takes is, a couple white people named Debbie in the United States for this to become a real pressure issue to where we end up invading Mexico. That's kind of the same type of thing that happened in Afghanistan. And that's a bad plan, because if you look at what the cartels do and what they control, it looks a lot like Afghanistan down south, where these cartels run. And that's a war we don't want to fight. I am Mexican-American. I am Latin. And I do have heritage in Mexico. So maybe that's some of my bias bleeding in, and also being from the Southwest, where we have a lot of New Mexicans and Hispanics and Latins, that I don't see us having to fight one-to-one with the cartels, but we can take steps to definitely curtail what they're doing. Fentanyls have been a huge issue in the United States. I'd like to see him address that, specifically the precursors that are coming from China to get that drug manufactured. We have put some of the strictest sanctions on Russia. How would those affect this particular problem? Because China imports 75-80% of their food and their energy, and we could put those sanctions on China, and maybe we'd cause them to have a regime change like we were hoping in Russia. I don't want us to be the military police of the world, but China's definitely a problem. I don't think they're as big. I think they're honestly a paper tiger compared to the United States. They don't have even though they have the largest Navy, they don't have the displacement like the United States Navy does to get here. I've said that multiple times on here. So why am I talking about this stuff on a 2A podcast? Because we're kind of embroiled in that time of year, in that election cycle, where we need to talk about the politics. Because it matters in the 2A, who we elect. Do I think we're close to a civil war? I still don't. If anything, the assassination attempt on Trump I see as a little bit more of a uniting force than I expected. You're hearing and you're seeing a lot of people tone down. I mean, Jack Black's band made some stupid comment and their world tour got banned and ended. So there are repercussions for shooting off your mouth about something like this now that we haven't seen in years. You're seeing CNN hosts. Wow, I was shocked to see this, but CNN hosts actually turn back their words and dial them down. I am concerned of people that are always on The View shooting off their mouth to the females on the planet that are still watching their stuff because they consume mass media still, where they're concerned about someone, a white male specifically, buying 50 rounds of ammunition. Well, in this case, that concern may have been necessary. In most cases, 50 rounds of ammunition is 2 boxes of ammunition. Why is that a concern? That's a little bit of time at the range. That's not even a full day for most of us, if you're really going to train and really going to shoot. So I think there's some misplacement into the concern that's out there. I've seen one of my friends on Facebook, and I've known her for a long time, is posts concern about Agenda 2025. I haven't read all 800 pages of it, but I have researched what it is and what the big play is right now as the left is pushing this, saying that Trump's trying to push this because that's what they're going to do. If you look at what Trump's personally saying and what his campaign is saying about Agenda 2025, it is a campaign slogan. There's no teeth behind this. Do I think that there's some stuff in there? For most of us that are on the right or in the center or, what's considered far right now, there's things we'd agree with, that we need to do some things to adjust fire because our country has went dramatically wrong for far too long. And we've let this militant side of one specific party, and that's the one that took the shot, or the shots, that have went under the radar as far as an entire group of people. They've always thought it was the radical right that was going to do this, and that's not what was going to happen. The right isn't going to riot. They have never rioted. If they wanted to riot, they should have rioted after the assassination attempt. Yet you saw people coming together and praying. So it's not that side. However, we have seen one side of the aisle consistently go out and burn down cities and start riots, and it is the militant wing of the left right now. So what do we do going forward? We better crawl over broken glass to vote. Okay? What I said last night was, and it is factually true, it took 8 years for our founding fathers to form our country before they even declared independence. We were already embroiled in a war for a year and a half or something like that before we decided we had to declare independence. We up to that point, that very last point, we had tried to settle this, and we were embroiled in a war for over a year before we actually declared independence from the crown, the British crown. So anyone who thinks that our founding fathers would be stacking bodies by now, they're misplaced. Their thought process is misplaced. We still need to do this the most peaceful way possible. And right now, that's still through the ballot box. That's still through making your voice known. That's the soapbox, standing up and making yourself and your views known. For at least 3 years, if not more. A lot of us have been closeted. We didn't talk about our views. It's now time to step out of that comfort zone. It has been for about 3 years now. It's time to get up and say, hey, I don't agree with you, and here's why. You're absolutely mistaken. And it's time to be informed. Mass media, legacy media now. They're the ones that are stuck in an echo chamber, and it's time to start looking at alternative media. Now, I'm not saying embrace the when you do that, there is a chance to go down the tunnel of being in the conspiracy theory place. And that's not where we need to be either. You know, I'm more akin to think that our government is inept enough that they could actually cost someone their life, like the president, than I am to think that there is some giant cabal conspiracy that made this happen. And all you have to do is go to the DMV or see how the IRS deals with each of us, and you can see the incompetence of the government. And that's why I'm not a fan of the government. We saw government negligence during COVID and bright neon lights. That's what shook me out of being a total statist. You know, I am 100% an ANCAP. I believe the government should stay out of everyone's life. I'm still having a hard time understanding why the government exists, but then I know that there's a cultural decline that has happened, that moral character isn't there to perpetrate or keep that utopian idea I have of a governmentless world, because that would require 100% of the people in it to be moral, and that's not something we see, whether you're religious or not. You know, that you just have to talk to a criminal or see the criminal element do what they do and realize there's not enough of us, of character, to influence even them. It should be so reprehensible that abortion goes up to birth just by cultural norms. And to allow it to get to the point where that's a thing now, that shows the decline of the American culture. And how do we fix that? Well, there's a number of ways to fix that. Quit supporting these idiot shows and movies and TV shows and TV programs, cartoons, whatever it is, that promote this stupid idea that if you believe in total equality, that's an idea. You know, to think that just because you're a good person, you're going to always win. That's not the case. The fact is, you're going to have to be able to fight. The fact is, you're going to have to be, somewhat in some physical format capable of defending yourself. The fact is, you're going to have to speak up. They're not going to psychically detect the problems you have with their way of thinking. We have to start standing up and saying, no, enough's enough. You know, my time happened with that when they started passing gun laws, or trying to, in New Mexico, right after they were trying to exploit one of the only school shootings that's ever happened in New Mexico that I had to deal with. And I've talked about that ad infinitum. And I'm still dealing with a lot of that mental baggage. And it just floors me to think that the government would take advantage of that. And they will. You give the government an inch and they'll take 10 miles. So let's not give them that inch. And I think the best vehicle we have right now isn't a libertarian communist, isn't Biden because he doesn't have a brain, and it damn sure isn't RFK, because RFK seems to flip-flop and he's willing to play ball with anybody as long as he gets to see some sort of power. So the only option for me right now, at least on the national stage, is Trump. On the local stages, these are the races that matter more to me and what I pay more attention to. And they're easier to research. You know, the special session in New Mexico is still on. And our governor in New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, has said that our state is in play if Biden doesn't straighten up and fly right. Well, now's the perfect time to strike and turn this country, specifically my state, to a different way of thinking and a way of continuing. 100 years, we've had 90 some odd years, we've had Democrat control of the Roundhouse in New Mexico. And while we've had a Republican governor from time to time, when you have the Roundhouse firmly in Democrat hands, you can only do so much. It's time we change it all. And it's time we put every one of these guys on notice, whether they're on our side or not, that they better toe the line and do what us, the American people, the New Mexicans, have finally said it's time to do. We are sick of you trying to take away our rights. We are sick of you trying to demonize us, because we are the people you serve. It's time to stand up for what we've sent you there to do. Serve us. Because that's what you went there for. It isn't to get your pocket lined. It's to do what is right for the American people and the American citizen. Quit trying to demonize us and say we're the problem. We're not. If we were, you would know it. Case in point, it was one halfway motivated idiot that did what he did. Could you imagine millions being motivated? That's what terrifies me. Terrifies me more is that we just accept the status quo and we get to the point where the government, for what it is, doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is that both sides decide, what do I care what the government says? What do I care what that cop says? And they start taking their, taking the law into their own hands. Because then any offense that someone sees in their eyes as an offense that's bad enough will be met with violence. And our country and our world doesn't need more violence. Like, share, subscribe, most importantly, be great.